Interstellar Council demanded peace. Humanity answered with relentless retaliation. Part 1. The Demand. The stars had always called to humanity. For 300 years they had answered that call. They built ships and flew into the black emptiness of space. They found new worlds and made them their homes. They met other species and joined the great Interstellar Council. They thought they had found their place among the stars. They were wrong. Admiral Park stood alone on the observation deck of his flagship, the Vengeance. He was 60 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles. The stars outside the window looked peaceful but knew better. Peace was a lie. It had always been a lie. His communication device buzzed. He looked at the screen and felt his heart stop. Elysium 7, the name of a human colony, home to 4 million people, families, children, dreams. Gone. The footage played on his screen. Warships filled the sky above the colony like black clouds. Their weapons fired down without warning, without mercy. Buildings exploded. Streets burned. People ran, but there was nowhere to run. The ships kept firing until nothing moved. Watched it all. His face showed nothing, but his hands shook. He had a niece on Elysium 7. She was 12 years old. She liked to draw pictures of spaceships and send them to him. He would never receive another drawing. They were the military arm of the Interstellar Council. They were tall creatures with hard skin like armor and 4 arms. They believed they were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. They believed smaller species should obey them. Humanity had never obeyed anyone. 3 hours after the massacre, the message came from the Council. High Arbiter appeared on every screen across human space. He was an ancient being, his body wrapped in flowing robes, his face calm and emotionless. He had led the Council for 2,000 years. He had seen species rise and fall. To him, humanity was just another young race that needed to learn its place. "People of Earth," said, his voice smooth and cold. "The tragedy at Elysium 7 was unfortunate but necessary. Your species violated Council law by expanding into protected territory. The response was legal and justified." His jaw tightened. "The Council demands peace," continued. "To achieve this peace, humanity must accept the following terms. First, you will surrender all colony ships. Second, you will reduce your military fleet by 70%. Third, you will pay reparations to the Empire for provoking this conflict. If you refuse, the full might of the Council will be brought against you. You have 30 days to comply." The message ended. Across human space, people watched in shock. They had seen their brothers and sisters burn. Now they were being told it was their fault. They were being told to apologize. The United Earth Parliament gathered on Earth in the Great Hall where humanity made its biggest decisions. Representatives from every colony filled the seats. Some were crying. Some were angry. Some were afraid. "We cannot win this war," said Representative Han, a woman from the Mars colonies. Her voice trembled. "The Council has 12 species, thousands of warships. We have maybe 300 combat-ready vessels. They will destroy us." "So we surrender," shouted Representative Shin, a man from the outer colonies. His son had died on Elysium 7. "We let them murder 4 million people and then we say sorry." The hall erupted in angry voices. Fear fought against rage. Survival fought against honor. Then Admiral Park walked to the speaking platform. The hall fell silent. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone respected him. He had defended humanity for 40 years. He had never lost a battle. Looked out at the representatives. His voice was quiet but clear. "They murdered our children," he said, "and they demand we apologize." He let the words hang in the air. "I have served Earth all my life. I have fought pirates, rebels, and hostile aliens. I have never asked for war, but I will not bow to those who burn our homes and call it justice." He turned and looked directly at the cameras, knowing that billions of humans were watching. "If we surrender now, we die slowly. They will take our ships, our weapons, our pride. And then when they decide we are too troublesome, they will finish what they started. I have seen how the Council treats species that bend the knee. They become slaves. Then they become extinct. The hall was completely silent. So I say we fight, continued. Not because we want war, but because they have already brought war to us. The only question is whether we fight back or whether we let them kill us on their schedule. Han spoke again, her voice small. How can we win? Almost smiled. I did not say we will win. I said we will fight, and humanity has never needed good odds to survive. From the back of the hall, a young woman stood. Doctor was the head of humanity's most secret weapons program. She was only 35, small and quiet, with glasses that made her look like a student. But she held secrets that could change everything. Admiral Park, she said, Project Nemesis is ready. A murmur spread through the hall. Most representatives did not know what Project Nemesis was. They had heard rumors of secret weapons, of research so dangerous it was hidden even from Parliament. Now they saw the truth in its eyes. We have weapons they have never seen, said. Technologies they believe are impossible. I cannot promise victory, but I can promise that any species that attacks Earth will pay a price they never imagined. Nodded at her, then turned back to Parliament. Vote, he said simply. The vote took less than 10 minutes. It was unanimous. Humanity would fight. That night, Admiral Park sent a message to the Interstellar Council. It contained only one image, a picture of Elysium 7 burning. Beneath the image were 2 words. We remember. High Arbiter read the message in his chamber. He had expected begging. He had expected negotiations. He had not expected this. For the first time in 1,000 years, the ancient being felt something he did not recognize. In another part of the galaxy, Commander of the Empire laughed when he saw the message. Humans, he said to his officers, so emotional, so foolish, they have signed their own death warrant. His officers laughed with him. They did not understand what they had awakened. On Earth, in a small apartment, a young pilot named Minu stared at a photograph. It showed his mother, his father, his younger sister. They were smiling. They were standing in front of their home on Elysium 7. Minu had been away on a training mission when the attack happened. He had tried to call them 100 times. No one answered. No one would ever answer. He put the photograph in his pocket, close to his heart. Then he walked to the recruitment center. I want to fight, he told the officer at the desk. The officer looked at him. She saw the photograph in his hand. She saw the pain in his eyes. So do we all, she said quietly. So do we all. The stars outside looked the same as they always had, but everything had changed. A young species had been pushed to the edge. Now they would show the galaxy what happened when humans had nothing left to lose. The war had not yet begun, but it was coming, and nothing in the universe would stop it. Interstellar Council demanded peace. Humanity answered with relentless retaliation. Part 2, The Gathering Storm. The Interstellar Council received humanity's response and laughed. In the great chamber where 12 species gathered to rule the galaxy, the laughter echoed off ancient walls. 2 words, said Commander, the military leader of the Empire. He was tall, even for his species, with 4 muscular arms and eyes like black stones. They send us 2 words and think this is defiance. High Arbiter did not laugh. He sat on his throne and watched the other council members with his ancient eyes. Something about the human response troubled him, though he could not say what. They are emotional creatures, said the representative of a species of floating beings made of gas and light. They will rage for a time, then they will see reason. If they do not see reason, we will teach them, said. My fleets will crush them in weeks. Raised one thin hand. We gave them 30 days. We will honor that timeline. Let them gather their little ships. Let them think they have a chance. When we finally move, the lesson will be more complete. Across the table, ambassador of the listened in silence. Her species had joined the council 3,000 years ago. They were diplomats, not warriors. They had always believed in peace. But as she listened to the others laugh about destroying humanity, she felt sick. She had met humans before. They were strange creatures, yes, short-lived and emotional, but they were also creative, determined, and surprisingly kind. She had seen human doctors treat wounded aliens without asking for payment. She had seen human engineers share their technology freely. She had seen human children playing with alien children, not caring about the differences between them. Now those children were dead, 4 million of them. And the council called it justice. That night made a decision that would change everything. She sent a secret message to Earth. Admiral Park received the message alone in his quarters. He read it 3 times, then called his most trusted officers. Captain arrived first. She was 40 years old, with sharp eyes and a mind that worked faster than most computers. She had commanded the stealth ship Spectre for 5 years, completing missions that officially did not exist. General Lee came next. He was the commander of all human ground forces, a weathered veteran who had fought in every major conflict since he was 18. His hair was white now, and his body carried 100 scars, but his spirit was unbroken. Doctor arrived last, carrying a tablet full of classified data. Showed them's message. The Council has not fought a real war in 3,000 years, read aloud. Their fleets are massive but slow. Their tactics are old. They expect enemies to meet them in open battle and lose. They have no experience fighting someone who refuses to play by their rules. She is telling us their weakness, said, stroking his chin. More than that, replied, she is telling us how to win. Looked up from her tablet. They have 7,000 capital ships. We have 300. Even with our new weapons, we cannot win a direct fight. Then we do not fight directly, said. We fight like humans have always fought when outnumbered. We hit hard, we move fast, and we never stop. Over the next 28 days, humanity transformed. Every shipyard worked around the clock. Workers slept in shifts, eating their meals at their stations. Ships that were months from completion were rushed into service. Old vessels were pulled from retirement and upgraded with new weapons. Captains supervised the final modifications to the Spectre. The ship was humanity's greatest achievement in stealth technology. It could bend light around itself, becoming invisible to both eyes and sensors. The Council believed such technology was impossible. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The cloaking system is ready, her chief engineer reported. We can stay invisible for 6 hours at a time. And the weapons, asked. Loaded and armed, 40 Nova torpedoes, each one can take out a capital ship. Nodded slowly, 40 torpedoes, 40 dead enemy ships if she used them well. It was not enough to win the war, but it was enough to start it properly. On Earth, General Lee walked through a training camp. Young soldiers ran drills in the hot sun. They were farmers, teachers, engineers, ordinary people who had chosen to fight, stopped and looked at them. You are not here because you want to kill, he told them. You are here because they gave us no choice. Remember that. We fight because they attacked us first. We fight because our families need protecting. We fight because if we do not, there will be no humans left to remember what peace felt like. Among the trainees, Lieutenant Minyu listened carefully. He had arrived at the camp 2 days after Parliament's vote. The photograph of his family was still in his pocket. He touched it every night before he slept. Minyu had been a good pilot before the attack. Now he was becoming something more. He flew the new fighters with a skill that frightened his instructors. He pushed the machines to their limits and beyond. He volunteered for every dangerous training mission. Some called him brave, others called him reckless. Minyu did not care what they called him. He only knew that somewhere out there, the creatures who killed his family were waiting, and he would find them. In her underground laboratory, Doctor ran final tests on Project Nemesis. The project had three main weapons. First, gravity bombs. Small devices that could create artificial gravity wells, crushing enemy ships like eggs. Second, EMP warheads. Weapons that could disable entire fleets, leaving them helpless in space. Third, something she simply called the last option. It was so terrible that she prayed they would never need to use it. Had dedicated her life to science because she loved understanding the universe. Now her understanding was being used to build weapons of mass destruction. Every night, she wondered if she was still a scientist or if she had become something darker. On day 29, Admiral Park gathered his command staff one final time. "The Council expects us to beg for more time," he said. "They expect us to negotiate. They expect us to act like every other species they have bullied into submission." He looked around the room at his officers. They were tired, they were afraid, they were ready. "Tomorrow, we stop being what they expect." Nodded, "The Spectre is in position. Station will not see us coming." Lee crossed his arms. "Ground forces are ready. Give us a target and we will take it." Clutched her tablet. "Project Nemesis weapons have been loaded onto our main ships. They are ready to deploy." Park allowed himself a small smile. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had accepted his fate. "Then let us begin. Today, humanity is a minor species that the galaxy ignores. Tomorrow, they will learn our name." Across the stars, the fleet gathered at Station, the largest military shipyard in the sector. 47 capital ships were docked there, waiting to join the invasion force that would crush Earth. Warlord commanded this fleet. He was a veteran of 100 campaigns, though none of those campaigns had involved an enemy that could truly fight back. He looked forward to adding humanity to his list of conquered species. "Sir," one of his officers said, "Day 30 begins in 6 hours. Should we prepare for departure?" Laughed, "Why rush? The humans will still be there tomorrow, and the day after, and every day until we decide their time is up." He did not notice the slight shimmer in the space outside his station. He did not see the ship that moved through the darkness like a ghost. Captain watched Station through her sensors. She counted the enemy ships and smiled. "Targets acquired," she whispered. "All hands prepare for attack. We fire in 6 hours." In 6 hours, the 30 days would end. In 6 hours, humanity would answer. The storm was here, and it was about to break across the galaxy like nothing the Council had ever seen. Interstellar Council demanded peace. Humanity answered with relentless retaliation. Part 3, First Strike. Day 31. The deadline had passed. High Arbiter waited in his chamber for humanity's surrender. He expected ambassadors. He expected apologies. He expected the usual begging that all young species eventually offered. Instead, he received a communication from Station. The officer on the screen was screaming. "They came out of nowhere," the officer shouted. "Ships we could not see, weapons we have never." The transmission ended in static. At Station, chaos ruled. Captain had timed her attack perfectly. The moment Day 30 ended, the Spectre dropped its cloak. For 3 seconds, they saw a human ship in the middle of their shipyard. Then the missiles launched. 40 Nova torpedoes streaked toward 40 different targets. The ships were still docked. Their shields were down. Their crews were sleeping. The first explosion lit up the darkness like a new sun. Then came the second. Then the third. In 30 seconds, 40 warships became 40 expanding clouds of fire and metal. But was not finished. "Target the fuel depots," she ordered. Then the command center. Her weapons officer fired. The fuel depots exploded in chain reactions that spread across the station. The command center was hit by 3 missiles at once. Warlord, who had laughed at humanity just hours before, died without ever understanding what had happened. 7 more ships powering up, her sensor officer reported. "They are trying to launch." "Not today," said. The Spectre turned and fired its remaining weapons. 7 more ships died in their docking bays. The cloaking device activated again, and the human vessel vanished into the darkness. When the fire finally stopped, Station was a ruin. 47 capital ships had been destroyed. Thousands of soldiers were dead. The largest military shipyard in the sector had been wiped out in less than 5 minutes. And they had not landed a single shot on their enemy. But Station was only the beginning. 10 light-years away, Admiral Park waited with his main fleet. They were hidden behind a gas giant, invisible to enemy sensors. 50 human warships against 300 vessels. The odds were terrible, but had not come to fight fair. "We have confirmation," his communications officer reported. "Station is destroyed. Captain is clear." Nodded, the first strike had succeeded. Now came the harder part. Warlord was dead, but his second-in-command, fleet commander, had brought his armada to this system. 300 ships, ready to jump to Earth and begin the invasion. They did not know that humanity was waiting for them. "Signal the fleet," said. "Begin attack pattern Delta." His ships emerged from behind the gas giant in perfect formation. They detected them immediately and began turning their massive warships to face the threat. Commander laughed when he saw the human fleet. 50 ships, they send 50 ships against us, destroy them." The fleet fired. Thousands of energy beams streaked across space. But human ships were smaller and faster. They scattered like leaves in wind, diving and spinning through the barrage. The weapons hit mostly empty space. Then humanity fired back. Doctor had given the fleet a new weapon, gravity missiles. When they hit their targets, they did not explode. Instead, they created small gravity wells that crushed anything nearby. The first gravity missile struck a cruiser. The ship crumpled like paper, folding in on itself until it was a ball of compressed metal smaller than a house. The crew died instantly. The second missile hit, then the third, then 10 more. Commander watched in horror as his ships were destroyed by weapons he did not understand. His fleet was built for overwhelming force, for crushing smaller enemies with pure numbers. He had no tactics for an enemy that could kill his ships so easily. "Concentrate fire on their flagship," shouted. "Kill their admiral." 100 ships turned their weapons toward the Vengeance. Park watched the targeting warnings flash across his screen. This was the moment he had planned for. "Launch fighters," he said calmly. 200 small fighters poured out of the human carriers. They were fast, agile, and flown by the best pilots humanity had trained. Lieutenant Minu led the first squadron. He had been given command just 3 days before because his skills were simply that good. Now he flew toward the enemy fleet with his dead family burning in his heart. "All pilots follow my lead," Minu said through his radio. "We draw their fire, we protect the flagship. We do not stop until they are dead or we are." The fighters dove into the enemy formation like wasps attacking a bear. They were too small for the capital ships to target easily. They twisted and turned between the massive vessels, drawing fire away from the human fleet. Minu flew like a man possessed. He threaded his fighter through gaps that seemed impossible. He fired his weapons at sensor arrays, engine ports, and shield generators, small targets that caused big problems. "Enemy cruiser losing power," one of his pilots shouted. "Their shields are down." "All ships target that cruiser," ordered from the Vengeance. 10 gravity missiles struck the unshielded cruiser at once. The ship did not just crumple. It imploded so violently that it pulled 2 nearby vessels into the destruction. The formation began to break. For the first time in 3,000 years, they were losing a battle. But humanity paid a price too. Minu watched as half his squadron was destroyed by enemy fire. Good pilots, brave pilots, friends he had trained with. They died in flashes of light that were there one moment and gone the next. "We are taking heavy losses," his wingman reported, voice tight with fear. Then we make every death count, Minyu replied. Stay on target. On the Vengeance watched the battle unfold. They were winning, but barely. His ships were faster and his weapons were better, but the enemy had numbers. For every ship they destroyed, humanity lost a fighter squadron. Admiral, his tactical officer, said, "We have crippled Commander's flagship. His engines are dead." Looked at the enemy command ship on his screen. It was drifting helplessly, but it was not destroyed. An idea formed in his mind. "Cease fire on the flagship," he ordered. "Let them watch what happens next." His fleet obeyed. They continued destroying other ships while the flagship drifted, unable to move or escape. 3 hours later, the battle ended. 130 ships were destroyed. 100 more were damaged beyond repair. The rest fled into hyperspace, carrying tales of horror back to the Council. Commander was captured when human soldiers boarded his crippled ship. He was brought before Admiral Park in chains. "This is impossible," said, his voice shaking. "You are primitives. You should not have weapons like this." Looked at him without pity. "You attacked our colonies. You killed our children. Did you really think we would not learn how to fight back?" Had no answer. Back on Prime, of this sector, General Lee landed with 10,000 soldiers. They did not come to slaughter. They came to send a message. Walked through the capital city with his troops, broadcasting footage of Elysium 7 on every screen they passed. The civilians watched in silence. They saw the burning buildings. They saw the running children. They saw what their empire had done. "This is what your leaders ordered," announced to the planet. "This is what they call justice. We could do the same to you. We could burn your homes and kill your families, but we are not you. Remember this day. Remember that we showed you mercy you never showed us." His soldiers took the government buildings but left the civilian areas untouched. They captured military supplies but distributed food to the hungry. High Arbiter received reports from all fronts. Station destroyed. Commander's fleet shattered. Prime occupied. In a single day, humanity had done more damage than any species had done in 1,000 years. He called an emergency council meeting. The other species came, their arrogance finally cracking. "We must crush them immediately," Commander demanded. "Send every fleet we have to Earth. End this now." But even as he spoke, felt something he had not felt in centuries: doubt. Admiral Park's message came that night. It was broadcast on every council channel so that every species could hear. "You wanted peace through submission," said, his voice cold and steady. "Now you will have peace through consequence. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. Attack us again and the next strike will not be against your shipyards. It will be against your homes." The message ended. In her secret laboratory, Doctor watched the reports come in. She should have felt proud. Her weapons had worked. Humanity was winning. But all she could think about was the dead. Dead. Human dead. So many lives ended because of what she had created. She looked at the plans for the last option and prayed that the war would end before they needed it. Across human space, celebrations erupted. People cheered in the streets. They had been told they could not win. They had been told to surrender. Instead, they had struck back. On the observation deck of the Vengeance, Park watched the stars alone. He did not celebrate. He knew that this was only the beginning. The Council would send more fleets. They would escalate. They would try to destroy humanity completely. And humanity would have to become harder, colder, and more terrible than they had ever been before. The first battle was won, but the long war had just begun. Interstellar Council demanded peace. Humanity answered with relentless retaliation. Part 4: The Long War. 2 years. The war lasted 2 years. In that time, the galaxy learned to fear a species they had once ignored. The name human became something that soldiers whispered in the dark. It became a warning that parents told their children. It became the name of nightmares. Admiral Park changed the way humanity fought. He refused to meet the Council fleets in open battle. Instead, he turned the entire galaxy into a hunting ground. Human ships appeared without warning at supply depots and destroyed them. They attacked communication relays and left entire sectors blind. They hit fuel stations and stranded enemy fleets in empty space. They never stayed in one place long enough to be caught. Captain and the Spectre became legends. She struck a military base at 4 and killed 12,000 soldiers while they slept. She destroyed a convoy carrying weapons to the front lines. She attacked a Council research station and stole technology that should have been impossible to access. Commanders offered enormous rewards for her capture. They sent their best hunters after her. None of them returned. The crews of Council ships began refusing to serve on Outer Rim patrols. They knew that the darkness held death, and death had a human name. But the war took its toll on humanity too. The colonies suffered. Supply lines were stretched thin. Young men and women left their families to fight and did not come back. Every victory cost lives that could not be replaced. General Lee fought on a dozen worlds. He led his soldiers through frozen wastelands, burning deserts, and toxic jungles. He watched them die one by one, and he carried their names in his heart. One night on a planet whose name he could not pronounce, sat alone in his tent. He looked at a photograph of his wife. She had died 3 years before the war from an illness that no doctor could cure. He was glad she was not alive to see what humanity had become. "Are we still the good ones?" he asked the photograph, "or have we become something else?" The photograph did not answer. Minyu was no longer a lieutenant. He was a commander now, leading the most elite fighter squadron in the human fleet. They called themselves the Ghost Wings. They flew missions that no one else would take. Minyu had killed more enemy pilots than he could count. Each kill felt like payment for his family, but the payment was never enough. The hole in his heart never filled. "Commander," his wingman said one night after a mission, "you need to rest. You have been flying for 3 days straight." Minyu looked at him with empty eyes. "I will rest when they are gone, all of them." His wingman said nothing more. He had seen other pilots burn out like this. He knew there was nothing anyone could say. Doctor was forced to deploy increasingly terrible weapons. The Council sent bioweapons against human colonies, created countermeasures that saved millions. Then she created bioweapons of her own, not to use but to threaten. The Council backed down but could not sleep for weeks afterward. The Council sent ships equipped with planet-cracking missiles, designed gravity shields that could stop them. Then she designed gravity bombs that could crack planets too. She locked the designs away and prayed no one would ever need them. One evening, Admiral Park visited her laboratory. He found her sitting alone in the dark, staring at a screen full of numbers. "You have done incredible work," said. "Your weapons have saved countless human lives." Did not look at him, and ended countless others, lives. I have lost count of how many species my inventions have killed. They attacked us first. I know, finally turned to face him. Her eyes were red from crying. But that does not make me feel less like a monster. Was silent for a long moment, then he sat down beside her. "Do you know why I became a soldier?" he asked. Shook her head. "Because I wanted to protect people. That is all I ever wanted, to stand between innocent people and those who would hurt them." He looked at his hands. "Now I give orders that kill thousands. I plan attacks that destroy cities. I have become exactly what I wanted to fight against." "Then why do you continue?" Met her eyes. "Because if I stop, the people I love will die. My soldiers, my colonists, my species. We did not choose this war, but we cannot choose to lose it either." He stood and walked to the door. Before he left, he said one more thing. "We do what we must, and when the war is over, we will carry the weight of what we have done. That is the price of survival." The turning point came at Earth. Warlord was dead, killed at station. But his successor, Admiral, was more cunning. He gathered a fleet of 300 ships, the largest since the war began, and launched a direct assault on humanity's home. The plan was simple: destroy Earth and humanity would collapse. Without there, the colonies would surrender. The war would end. Admiral's fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. For a moment, he allowed himself to feel triumph. Earth hung in the distance, blue and green and fragile, the birthplace of humanity's defiance. All ships, commanded, attack formation, we end this today. His fleet advanced. Park waited for them. Every human ship that could fight had been called home. 200 vessels stood between Earth and destruction. It was not enough. Admiral's voice came through the communication system. The Spectre is in position. We can take out their command ships, but there are too many. Some will get through. I know, replied. Doctor, is Project Nemesis ready? In her laboratory deep beneath Earth's surface, looked at a single red button. Her hand trembled. Ready, she whispered. You understand what this weapon does? Yes, her voice cracked. I designed it. Can you do this? Closed her eyes. She thought of the colonies that would burn if Earth fell. She thought of the children who would die. She thought of the future that would never exist. Yes, she said, I can do this. The battle began. Human ships met the fleet at the edge of the system. Minu led his ghost wings into the heart of the enemy formation, tearing through fighters and bombers with cold precision. Stay together, Minu shouted as enemy fire exploded around him. Protect the carriers. Spectre struck from the shadows, destroying command ships and supply vessels. But for every ship she killed, 10 more kept coming. Park watched from the vengeance as his fleet was slowly pushed back. They were fighting brilliantly, but the numbers were impossible. In an hour, maybe less, the enemy would reach Earth. Admiral is broadcasting, his communications officer reported. Nodded, put him through. The Admiral appeared on the screen. His face was triumphant. Surrender now, said. You have fought well, human, but it ends today. Give up and some of your people may survive. Looked at him for a long moment, then he smiled. I have a counteroffer, he said. Look behind your fleet. Frowned and checked his sensors. What he saw made his blood freeze. In the center of his formation, a point of light was growing. It was beautiful and terrible, a swirling vortex of impossible energy. What is that? Whispered. The last option, replied. A gravity well generator. In approximately 10 seconds, it will create an artificial black hole in the middle of your fleet. His eyes widened. That is impossible, the energy required. We found a way. The vortex expanded. Ships began to slide toward it, their engines useless against the gravity. Screamed orders at his helmsman, but there was nothing anyone could do. 200 warships were pulled into a single point of infinite density. They compressed into nothing, vanishing from existence in seconds. The survivors fled. 100 ships turned and ran, screaming warnings across every channel. They told stories of a weapon that could swallow fleets whole. They told stories of humans who could break the laws of physics. Admiral escaped, but his invasion was over. In her laboratory, removed her hand from the button. She was shaking so badly that she could not stand. 200 ships, thousands of lives, gone because she pressed a button. She fell to her knees and wept. On the Vengeance, Park looked at the empty space where the enemy fleet had been. He had won. Earth was saved. But he felt no joy, only a cold, heavy weight that would never leave him. The news spread across the galaxy. Humanity had a weapon that could destroy entire fleets in seconds. The council races began to realize that this war could not be won. One by one, they started to sue for peace. Only the refused. Their pride would not allow surrender. Their hatred would not allow mercy. So the war continued. and humanity prepared for the final battle. Interstellar Council demanded peace. Humanity answered with relentless retaliation. Part 5: The Reckoning. The galaxy was changing. They were the first to leave the council. Ambassador stood before the great assembly and spoke words that had not been spoken in 3,000 years. "We joined this council because we believed in peace," she said. "But there is no peace here, only conquest and cruelty dressed in pretty words. The burned human children alive and you called it justice. Now humanity fights back and you call them savages. I will not stand with hypocrites any longer." She walked out of the chamber. Within days, 2 more species followed her. The Interstellar Council, which had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, was cracking. But they would not surrender. Their empire had never known defeat. Their warriors had never been broken. Even now, with their fleets shattered and their shipyards burning, they refused to accept that they had lost. Admiral Park gathered his command staff in the war room of the Vengeance. The table showed a holographic map of the galaxy. One world was highlighted in red. Prime, the other races have surrendered, said. The war is essentially over, but they will never stop fighting. Their culture does not allow it. As long as there stands, they will rebuild. They will wait. And one day they will attack us again. Captain studied the map. Prime is heavily defended. Orbital platforms, planetary shields, 100 ships in permanent patrol. "We have the gravity weapon," General Lee said. "We could destroy them from space." No, his voice was firm. "We are not going to commit genocide. We are not them." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what the Admiral meant. It would be so easy to end the forever. One button, one weapon, one moment. But humanity would lose something far more important than the war. They would lose their souls. "We attack the planet directly," continued. "We break their military. We capture their leaders. We force them to sign a surrender. But we do not kill civilians. We do not destroy their cities. We show them, and the entire galaxy, that humans can be merciful even to those who showed us none." Doctor looked at him with something like hope in her eyes. She had not slept properly in months. The weight of the gravity weapon haunted her every moment. But this decision, this choice to be better than their enemy, gave her something to hold on to. "The assault will be the largest military operation in human history," said. "Every ship we have, every soldier we can spare." Lee nodded slowly. "I will lead the ground forces personally." Looked at him. "You are 63 years old. You have given enough." "I have given nothing until the war is over." His voice was hard. "These soldiers are my children. I will not ask them to die while I watch from orbit." There was nothing could say to that. Commander Menu, now the highest-ranking pilot in the fleet, spoke next. "The Ghost Wings will clear the skies. Give us enough time, and the ground forces will have safe landing zones. You will face their entire defensive air force," warned. Menu almost smiled. It was the first time anyone had seen him smile in 2 years. "Good. I have been waiting for a real challenge." The plan was set. In 3 days, humanity would strike at the heart of the Empire. Admiral Park spent those 3 days preparing. He wrote letters to the families of soldiers who had already died. He reviewed tactical plans until he knew every detail by heart. He looked at old photographs of a galaxy that used to be at peace. The night before the attack, came to his quarters. "You should sleep," she said. "I will sleep when this is over." Sat down across from him. "Do you think we can win?" Yes, there was no doubt in his voice. "We have the weapons, we have the soldiers, we have the will, we will win." "That is not what I meant." Looked at him with eyes that had seen too much death. "I meant, can we win and still be ourselves, or will we become something we hate?" Was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "That is why we are not using the gravity weapon. That is why we are capturing instead of killing. We can win and stay human, but only if we choose to." Nodded slowly. "I hope you are right." The attack began at dawn. 200 human warships emerged from hyperspace around Prime. The defensive fleet moved to intercept them immediately. 100 ships against 200. Better odds than humanity had faced in most of this war. But they fought with the desperation of those defending their home. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They threw themselves at the human fleet with everything they had. Minyu led the Ghost Wings into the heart of the battle. The sky above Prime burned with weapons fire. Fighters twisted and dove, living and dying in seconds. "Stay on target," Minyu shouted to his pilots. "We clear a path for the carriers." A fighter came at him from below. Minyu dove under its fire, spun his ship around, and destroyed it with a single shot. Another came from his left. He killed that one too, then another, and another. He flew like a machine, without fear, without hesitation. The photograph of his family pressed against his chest. He was doing this for them, for everyone who had died on Elysium 7, for everyone who would never come home. "Ground forces launching," the tactical channel announced. Minyu looked down and saw the drop ships descending toward the planet. Thousands of soldiers in metal containers, falling toward a world that wanted them dead. General Lee was in the first dropship. He stood at the front, watching the planet grow larger through the viewport. Around him, young soldiers checked their weapons and tried to hide their fear. "Listen to me," said, his voice cutting through the noise of descent. "In a few minutes we will be on the ground. There will be enemies everywhere. Some of you will die. That is the truth, and I will not lie to you." The soldiers looked at him. "But remember why we are here. We are not here for revenge. We are not here to destroy. We are here to end this war so that no more children have to die. Human, or we fight today so that tomorrow there can be peace." The dropship shuddered as it entered the atmosphere. "Stay together, follow your orders, trust the soldier beside you, and when this day is over we will all go home." The doors opened, was the first one out. The battle for Prime lasted 18 hours. Lee fought through streets that became rivers of fire. He lost count of how many times he was almost killed. He watched soldiers he had trained, soldiers he had loved like family, fall and never rise again. But they pushed forward, block by block, building by building. In the sky above, Minyu cleared a path through the Air Force. He lost 2/3 of his pilots, but he never stopped fighting. By the end, he was flying on instinct alone, his body exhausted, his mind empty of everything except the mission. Captain Spectre disabled the planetary defense grid, allowing human ships to establish orbital superiority. Without support from space, the ground forces overwhelmed the defenders. By evening, human soldiers surrounded the Imperial Palace. Admiral Park descended to the planet himself for the final act. He walked through the shattered gates of the palace, past the bodies of guards, into the throne room where the Emperor waited. The Emperor was old, his forearms hanging weakly at his sides, his eyes filled with hate. "You have won," the Emperor said, "but you will never have peace. My people will hate you forever." Looked at him without expression. "Your people attacked us. Your soldiers burned our children. Your empire tried to destroy us. We did not start this war. And yet you finish it with our in flames. Your military is in flames. Your cities are intact. Your civilians are unharmed." Stepped closer. "We could have killed every last one of you. We have weapons that could crack your world like an egg. Instead, we chose mercy. Remember that." The Emperor had no answer. "You will sign a surrender," continued. "Your military will be dismantled. Your leaders will face trial for what they did to Elysium 7, but your people will live. Your civilization will survive. That is more than you offered us." The surrender was signed that night. On the battlefield outside the palace, Doctor helped treat the wounded, human and alike. She had not wanted to come, but she could not stay away. She needed to see that some good could come from all the death she had caused. A young soldier, barely more than a child, looked up at her with confusion in his eyes. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. "We are enemies." Bandaged his wound gently. "We were enemies. Now the war is over. My commanders told me humans were monsters." "Your commanders were wrong." Finished the bandage and gave him water. "We are just people, people who wanted to live in peace. Your leaders gave us no choice but to fight." The young soldier closed his eyes. He was crying. Sat beside him and waited. She did not know what the future would bring. She did not know if humanity could ever heal from what they had done and what had been done to them. But she knew in that moment that they had not become monsters. Not yet, not ever. The war was over. Now came the harder part, learning how to live with what they had done.